What's up, y'all? V Collection 9 just dropped on Splice Rent to Own. I'm really excited to test drive some of these new plugins. There's 4 brand new instruments and they've redesigned some instruments as well. I thought a fun way to try these out would be to make some chord progressions and some different style tracks. And I really wanted to share with y'all 4 tips for making chord progressions that I really wish I knew earlier. So the first tip I wish I knew for chords and melodies is that syncopation goes a long way. To demonstrate this, I want to play around with one of my favorite instruments in V Collection, and that is Prophet 5V. They actually separate it from the Prophet VS-V. On the top panel, it doesn't look too much different, but if you go to the advanced section, you can see they've streamlined the parameters into these nice clean modules. It makes it much faster to get in there and sound design. When syncopating chords, it's really important to control the timing of the envelopes and modulators, so this is very helpful. So syncopation goes a long way for chords and melodies. How do we apply this? It's easier to pull this off if you pick a sound with a shorter envelope, a shorter sound. I like that sound, but I think it needs to be a little shorter, so we can go into the envelope section and take that decay down. That's the filter envelope. Take the release time down. Then take the amp envelope down. And then maybe just a slight soften the attack. That's a little bit more of a tight sound. So let's hear the drums I kind of picked out. These are all one shots from this awesome audio box pack. So if I wasn't maybe thinking about syncopation when trying to make chords, I'm gonna try to maybe just do an F minor ninth. I'm gonna move between 2 chords pretty simply, an F minor ninth to a C major 7th. So listen to that without any syncopation. So now let's try to syncopate these chords off the beat. And if you're not really comfortable with feeling different types of rhythms, then there's an easy way to do this. I'm gonna show you how in a second, but I'm gonna try to just kind of play some syncopated rhythms. Actually, I want to take the filter envelope down a little bit, so I'm going to go back into the main panel. It's a really subtle and seemingly obscure step, but it's really nice to line up your envelopes to the timing of your beats. And if you don't feel comfortable trying to play it on the keyboard and want to syncopate it, it's actually pretty easy in your DAW. So let's try to play long sustained notes, knowing that we'll try to syncopate the chords later because it's a little easier to do it this way. And it's pretty easy now. We can shorten the chord notes and try to syncopate them manually by moving them off the grid. All right, so now I hear a bass line on top of this. I'm gonna open up Korg MS-20V. This is one of the new instruments in V Collection, and it's really known for its powerful, gritty sounds. And I do feel like I hear maybe like a grittier bass line. So let's listen to some of these bass patches. I kind of like this one with a little distortion. That's a little too intense. And the nice thing about this is it has the streamline effect, so maybe if I want a little more distortion on this one, I can go ahead and add that. And no, I don't want to filter, I just want to kind of change the distortion type. I mean, that kind of sounds nice. Let's see if we can get something with that. I added these counter melodies with SQ80V. This is one of the new instruments in V Collection. So the next thing I wish I knew a little earlier on my journey in learning chord progressions was the 2-5-1 progression and how to utilize it effectively. For this example, I'm gonna pull up an instance of Piano V. This got redesigned. If you look into the advanced section, the whole UI looks much cleaner. They really allow you to fine-tune the sound in this section. So I'm gonna go through some presets. Studio Jazz Grand sounds good. Maybe more open sound, open lid. And the one thing I really love is you can customize the velocity curve. So the 2-5-1 progression in C major looks like this. So this is the 2, 5, 1. Again, D, G, C. And that's in C major. And of course you can use extensions and alterations when you get more advanced. It's really gonna sound jazzy at that point. If this feels a little new or uncomfortable, I'm gonna show you an exercise that really unlocks this. We can also do this in minor keys, so C minor would look like this. And these are all in root position, so that sounds very basic, stock. So one immediate thing you can do is just get rid of this awkward chord movement. Going from the 2 to 5, just take the top 2 notes and move them down 1 scale step. So that's much smoother of a chord movement. So there's an exercise that I want to show y'all that really helped me unlock the 2-5-1 progression in a basic manner. I'll be the first to admit I'm not a jazz pianist, but learning these exercises and the basic fundamentals of jazz theory really go a long way when it comes to music production. So the exercise is essentially a series of 2-5-1 chord progressions in different keys, and it definitely helps with hand positions. So it starts with a 2-5-1 in C major, and I'm going to use the inversion. 2, 5, 1. So when you land here, you're going to use the root of the chord, C, as the next starting point of the next 2-5-1. So this, you're going to treat this as 2, a minor 2. So you just essentially go from here, and you drop the middle and top note down 1 semitone to make it a minor 7. And this is now our 2, our minor 2. So far it looks like this. 2, and then we do the same thing. So that's always going to be a whole step with this one and a half step here. And then that's down to B flat major 7th. And then you continue this sequence down until you land back on C. All right, so the next tip I have for y'all is to harness the power of chord substitutions. Now there are several types of chord substitutions, but 2 I want to cover in this video are borrowed chords and the tritone substitution. So a chord substitution is as simple as it sounds. You're essentially replacing any given chord in a progression with another chord that either shares some of the same notes or is from a parallel key. This is where there's a lot of theory involved, but I want to break down those 2 methods I just talked about. So I have this nice bright Ruffian Rhapsody preset. We have A flat major, maybe major 7th, to B flat major. That's a pretty expected one, is that C minor. So now that you kind of heard maybe a C minor in your head, now maybe we can borrow a chord from the parallel major or minor. So this is one of the most common and pretty basic ones, but let's borrow the major one. We have the A flat, 6 chord, 7 chord, 1. Another simple borrowed chord that's pretty effective, sounds really nice and chill, is maybe the major 1. Well, normally you would have a major or dominant 5, but maybe do a minor 5. So that's C major, borrowing from the key of C minor. Pretty mellow over a beat. Let's try listening to this on one of the new instruments in V Collection, and that's Augmented Strings. So borrowed chords is pretty easy. Borrow from the parallel major and minor key, so the same root note, C major, borrows from C minor, and vice versa. For a tritone substitution, you do need to know what a tritone is, and that is an interval that's 6 semitones apart. So a lot of tension in that interval, but it's very effective if used right. So a tritone substitution is essentially when you take a chord that has a tritone in it. So this G dominant 7th has a tritone 6 semitones apart between these two notes. So any chord that has a tritone in it, we'll just take those two notes and we flip them. So maybe we'll take this F and put it down here, and we build a chord that contains these two notes. So if this is the 3rd and the 7th, 1, 3, 5, 7, 3 and 7, then we just think maybe they're reversed. This is now the 3 down here, and this is the 7. So what chord would that look like? Well, we could build a D flat dominant 7th. So essentially, where you have this chord G dominant 7th, we can maybe use the D flat dominant 7th instead, and that's the substituted chord. I'm going to adjust the sound design of this a little bit, make it a little warmer. So much movement in the sound. If you actually go to the advanced section, this is a very powerful sampler. You can do a lot of modulation, and you can hear like that one sound has a lot of movement without touching or automating any of these macros. Like that's definitely something to automate. I can hear that. Definitely harding that. Boom. So here's some string stabs that are outlining a 2-5-1 progression. So this G dominant 7th has a tritone between the B and the F. So we can take the 5th a half step down and the root a half step up. And now let's take the bass note down to D flat. All right, so the last tip I have for y'all is to utilize the power of arpeggios. And I know what you're thinking, Nick, arpeggios are really basic. And if you're unfamiliar, they are pretty basic. It's essentially when you take a chord and break it down into a sequence of individual notes. Maybe ascending, descending, seesawing pattern. Now, playing it may seem a little basic, but there are a lot of creative applications you can use with the keyboard. And specifically, as a producer, you can use devices like the Arpeggiator to create some really cool effects. So to demonstrate these creative uses of arpeggios, I'm going to use Augmented Voices. This is actually one of my new favorite instruments in V Collection. Has these really nice macros that you can fine tune the sound with. And of course, a ton of presets in the vocal section. Look at this. I mean, so let's take like a progression like 1, C minor, to maybe just major 5. So arpeggios are really powerful, first off, because they can offer variations on a chord. So if we have a chord like C minor, there are now a lot of different ways we can voice it with an arpeggio. For 1, 2, 3, you're essentially creating little melodic shapes with these chords. Now that's just using your keyboard and playing it. Let's add an arpeggiator device on this MIDI track. Command F, arpeggiator, and just drop it on there. So even though I'm using Ableton, most DAWs have a stock arpeggiator, and a lot of the functionality that I mentioned in this video is going to be the same. So I can use the gate maybe to control the sustain, which is one of the first things that you might want to do. But let's get some creative here. So maybe we do this sync, we go to free. And I like moving the rate around to kind of find a sweet spot. Let's get the gate up a little bit. And of course we can mess with the styles. This is the order of the notes. There are a lot of different styles here, but let's maybe try thumb up. And another parameter I really like digging into is the steps parameter. This is how far up the octave it's going to repeat. So this is already kind of sounding inspiring. So at this point, I'm going to try to resample this. Yeah, that's kind of a sweet spot around that 28%.